Today, I'm going to make my third attempt to do a review of Lusus Naturae, which is a monster book. Now, most referees who do Lamentations, since there's no monster book, they use this or something similar if they need to do a generic horse or lion or dragon or unicorn or centaur. But the philosophy of Lamentations is that monsters should be unique and should be used only once, and there should be a monster in the adventure. So this is the monster making book for Lamentations. But they still published this very briefly. It was only a very small run of it done. And part of that is economics, that they can make more profit if they just print a bunch of books and sell them until they're gone than they can if they do print on demand. And they can make higher quality books that way too than you do get with print on demand. Higher quality means more sales because they've got something worth buying. So, Lusus Naturae, written by Raphael Chandler, illustrated by Jennifer Bone. It was only published for a brief time, only sold for a brief time by Lamentations of the Flame Princess. And it's a bunch of unique monsters with really good pictures. Most of them are in color, and the ones that are in black and white are that way for a reason. They're actually all in color, it's just some of them appear in black and white because that's what color they are. So I'm not going to show you the stats for too long. I just want to show off the pictures. I used to play with somebody who had memorized the monster manual. And so when the DM would pull out some monster he'd never heard of, one that he'd made up himself, he would get upset. The DM would say, well, you really don't get to play this game, do you? You're supposed to not know what the monster can do. Lots of unique monsters. The trouble is that one of my players has this book. So I can't really use too many of the monsters out of this. That's the problem with any monster book. That if the player has it, then what the monster can do is not a surprise. They know what it can do. And one of my great beefs with Theme Folio, which actually should be a beef with all the monster books, is there's some monsters in the monster books that ought to be unique to a particular module or a particular setting. And TSR made a habit of publishing in their monster books monsters who should not have been in the general book of generic monsters. One of my things I liked about the first edition monster manuals, I had every monster from legend you might possibly want. Unicorns, nymphs, dragons, orcs. Had all of those. And this is an interesting one. He's a super villain from another universe. I'm probably going to use that one. So the D&D Monster Manual had all the generic monsters you might possibly want, but they also published things like the Drow that should have been unique to a particular set of modules. And so that was a beef of mine, especially the second edition Monstrous Manual, which had a bunch of monsters that were unique to a particular setting, monsters I'd been building up for years to my players, and when one of the players got it, he suddenly had all the stats on it. Now, Gelatinous Cube was one of my favorite monsters from first edition, so I like the Gelatinous Hypercube. Look how small that is. So, interesting pictures, interesting monsters. There's like an aquatic chimera. But, you know, once you've seen it, you can make up your own aquatic chimera and make the stats completely different. One of my beefs with modern porn and art is, you know, this is supposed to be Lilith, an ancient being, and she has no pubic hair. So that makes her look like a child to my eyes. Children are not at all erotic to me. So, anyway, there's an interesting monster. There's another one of the black and white ones. It's not, actually not black and white. That's full color. That's what color it is. A couple of more monsters. So there's a wide variety of different monsters, and these are really suitable for being unique monsters. But as I said, the problem is now it's been published. Your player could get this book, could get the PDF, and then they know what the monster can do. They can know what its weaknesses are. They're not surprised by the monster and what it can do. Here's a dinosaur chimera. It's an interesting skeleton thing. And some of these monsters were all thumbs or noses or tongues. Another black and white one. Yeah, a lot of them are big compared to humans. Notice that? Yeah, so interesting monsters. Snake thing, vagary, Veilbane, vision of dregs. You can see the person to give it scale. Void's memory. There's a nice war golem. Leastrel. West Haven. Woeful Scryer. Yellow Scold. Mushroom monster. And then there's an appendix. One of the monsters can anagram spells. So, for example, he can turn dispel magic into medical pigs. So here's a bunch of anagram spells. There's also a monster generator, because the monsters are just in alphabetical order, and this gives you some idea about where the monsters belong. Here's like a thing on what does the monster want? What's its motivation? And then there's a thing on the nemesis of the monsters. That a monster might, for example, be vulnerable to a particular person. Here's a thing on some interesting diseases. Diseases don't show up enough in games that are supposedly taking place in the Middle Ages. And things you might find in the monster's lair, like, for example, a dagger made out of fire. Here's some other stuff published by the same author. He's done some games, some nonfiction, some novels, even some video games. So, that is Lusus Naturae, a book of monsters.